It's no surprise with such a long-running franchise like the Tales series that several spin-offs also make up the robust selection of games that the RPG offers. One of those being Tales of the Heroes Twin Brave, which is essentially an entirely different take on the usual gameplay that makes up each mainline entry. It shares much in common with the likes of Dynasty Warriors and allows you to choose from various characters from the series' history. As you would expect, they all come with their own specific abilities that all affect the battles differently. From devastating AoEs to more defensive maneuvers or basic combos, there's a nice amount of options when it comes to taking on enemies. Although most Musou games have the potential to get quite repetitive, the way in which Twin Brave deals out its unlockables manages to keep the gameplay from becoming stale. You'll always be finding new and interesting ways to tackle each challenge. This is mainly due to the item system that can alter the stats of your chosen fighter. They can be found in chests throughout the environment and can really help out in tight situations. From increased attack to cosmetic changes, they add a welcome dynamic to the gameplay. If you're fond of the series and are looking to grab a game you can pick up and play anywhere, Twin Brave will not disappoint. Anyone who's been watching the channel for some time will know I'm a huge fan of RPGs. The PSP was a literal treasure trove for these types of experiences, and Last Ranker represents one of the best out of the bunch. As the player, you take on the role of a young man named Zig, who is part of a group of wanderers who one day decides to leave the group and set out on his own adventure. The main objective sees you traveling the land and interacting with a range of NPCs and locations that all add a real weight to the world. Now, the first aspect that many people will notice are the incredible visuals. Seeing it up and running on the handheld is a real sight to behold and manages to lend the adventure a layer of quality not often found with others on the system. One of the most important parts of any RPG that can make or break the game is the battling system, and I'm pleased to say that the one present in the Last Ranker is easily the star of the show. Naturally, you possess a wide range of skills and abilities, with more becoming available the further you progress and grow throughout the journey. From physical-based attacks to more devastating magic, the game constantly drip-feeds you new ways to tackle each situation, with every action being dependent on the amount of SP you have that slowly regenerates after depleting it, so using the right option at the right time is key to overcome some of the more daunting enemies you'll find throughout the game. If you're on the lookout for a new and engrossing RPG, Last Ranker has got you covered. Initial D Street Stage is based off the anime of the same name and revolves around the underground culture of street racing. Much like the many entries in the series that have come before it, Street Stage sees the player taking on a variety of challenges set across a range of locations in Japan. As you would expect, these challenges are presented as different modes, with the main career option being the most substantial offering. The player begins with a simple car and must slowly make their way up the ranks. By completing specific missions and defeating rivals, you'll unlock cards that allow you to earn more parts to tune your vehicle and to ultimately build a machine that can take on anything you throw at it. This sheer diversity and amount of customization options is what really helps Initial D Street Stage succeed. There's an insane amount of cards which will surely keep many players busy, especially if you want to unlock them all. The game just keeps on providing new ways in which to improve your performance out on the track, but never to the point where it sacrifices the amount of difficulty that's on offer. As well as the robust career mode, there is time trial as well as multiplayer that helps pad out the experience. If you're a racing fan and are looking for something new, Street Stage is a great option. The Super Robot Wars franchise has always been a somewhat underrated series of games, largely due to the fact that not many have ever released here in the West. Now, Z2 is a real highlight and brings the turn-based action to life in a stylish and grand fashion. What really manages to shine is the gameplay, which soon becomes one of the best aspects of the game. It manages to share much in common with the likes of Fire Emblem and Advance Wars, with the player having access to a series of characters that all possess their own size, weapons and stats that can make a huge difference once out on the field. It all takes place on a grid and sees you combating enemy forces as you both take it in turns to move your units around the map. It all looks rather simplistic, but once you carry out an action, the screen lights up with incredible animations that all pack a real punch. The impressive amount of detail that is lent to each character and mech is at times on par with the anime show that inspires the game, and looks incredible on the handheld screen. Of course, the language barrier will most likely put some players off, but it's not too hard to find your way around the game, and with some handy guides available online as well, it's never been easier to enjoy Super Robot Wars Z2. If you're fond of weird and completely unique games, then Akibas Trip is for you. It all revolves around the main character known as Akihiro and his love of anime culture. As the player, you traverse the well-known Akihabara district of Japan and uncover a mysterious plot set in motion by vampire-like beings who are intent on taking control of the town's inhabitants. Here's where the weird comes in. In order to defeat these creatures, you must strip them down to their underwear and expose them to sunlight. On the surface, it sounds fucking ridiculous, but once you actually get to spend some time with the game, you'll soon realize that behind the somewhat idiotic premise is a series of deep and well thought out mechanics that form the basis of some pretty solid gameplay. It's essentially a brawler that allows the player to take advantage of several skills during each fight. From hand-to-hand combat to weapon-based abilities, there's plenty of options, as well as being able to chain the strip action together for any enemies that have a low enough amount of life. Once they've been stripped, you get to keep any of the clothes you've taken off, which can then be sold or worn. The game is quite generous when it comes to activities as well. Not only are there story-based missions, but a ton of side quests. Akibas Trip is well worth picking up. Shining Arc is another prime example that the PSP was one of the best handhelds for fans of RPGs. Unfortunately, it never found its way out of Japan, but it can now be enjoyed with a translation, and it soon becomes one of the best adventures on the PSP. The standout aspect for me personally has to be the battle system. It's a mix of both real-time and turn-based mechanics that make it stand out amongst the sea of RPGs available on the handheld. During each battle, you can freely move about the field, guard, dash, and attack enemies, and naturally you have a party of characters at your side, which all possess their own unique traits and abilities that can be called upon depending on the situation at hand. But there is much more to Shining Arc than just combat. There are several activities outside of battle that add to the overall enjoyment of the game. The main one being farming and cooking that allows the player to cultivate their own supply of items that make your travels through the world all the more manageable. Add to this the ability to hunt and collect monsters for materials that can then be used to create powerful equipment, and what you have is one of the most engaging and well thought out RPGs on the system. The PSP was home to many incredible shooters, but one we never saw in the West on the PSP was Darius Burst. Like most other shooters, the player must jump into a ship and take on wave after wave of enemies through a series of stages. There's a total of 11, but thanks to the select system at the end of each level, you get to choose which one you would like to advance to next. It's a feature that has been part of the series for quite some time, so it's nice to see it included, as it adds a good touch of variety to each run. As you would expect during gameplay, you have access to a wide array of both weaponry and defensive items that increase your chances of success. From standard lasers to homing missiles and shields, each of them become essential in devising a strategy, especially against bosses, which are quite easily the most impressive part of the game. They can at times take up the entire screen, and they all possess unique attack patterns that require a clear level of thought to overcome. It's not exactly a walk in the park, and can become quite frustrating at times due to the sheer level of difficulty, but it never feels unfair, rather just confirming your lack of skill, which slowly increases the more you get used to the several mechanics that are in play. If you've exhausted the usual selection of shooters on the system, Darius Burst is well worth giving a go. The Tales series has always been well known for its robust and engaging battle system. The depth and intricate nature of the mechanics that comprise it have always been something that has made it resonate with many players. Tales of Versus takes this system and couples it with a party setup much in the vein of Super Smash Bros. To incredible results. First off, there is a huge range of characters to play as, but not all of them are available right at the start. They are slowly dealt out through the story mode that makes up most of what the game has to offer. But where Tales of Versus really shines is within multiplayer. Much like Smash Bros, the frantic nature of each engagement easily becomes the best aspect of the experience. Each character possesses a string of basic attacks as well as special skills known as arts that are unique to each fighter. Chaining all of these attacks together is essential to coming out on top, so trying out each fighter to find one that suits you best is a good idea when starting out. Like most fighting games, as well as the story and multiplayer options, there's also several other modes that help pad out the game, such as special battles, as well as several minigames that prolong the life of the fighter. It's not perfect by any means, but if you're looking for a solid and fun game to play with friends, Tales of Versus is a great option. Grand Knight's history is a tactical RPG that all revolves around saving the fictional kingdom of Ristia. As the player, you take on a squad of mercenaries and have to choose which nation out of the 3 that make up the land to support. Your squad is comprised of up to 4 characters that can all be fully customized. There's several character classes ranging from knights to archers and mages that all offer distinct types of play when it comes to the most impressive aspect of the game, the battling system. It all plays out on a grid from a side-on perspective and sees you selecting from a wide array of skills and abilities before carrying them out. Each move or action that you take costs your entire party something known as AP, and depending on what you perform, quite a big chunk can be used and can then be refilled upon defeating an enemy. It's an interesting system that really makes you think about which ability to use and when. As with most RPGs, you can expect to find yourself leveling up over time and unlocking more powerful attacks as your character progresses and your stats grow. As well as natural progression, you can also artificially enhance your overall chances through the use of several items, weapons and armor, and result in your team becoming a real force within the world. Grand Knight's history is easily one of the best RPGs I've ever played, and I cannot recommend it enough. When it comes to tactical RPGs, Valkyrie Chronicles has always been one of my go-tos. Upon hearing that we weren't going to be receiving the 3rd installment in the series, I was hugely disappointed, but thanks to the dedicated passion of the community, it's now possible to experience the game using a fan translation, and it's pretty solid as well. The 3rd installment plays out much like the previous entries and sees players utilizing a wide range of units to take part in missions against enemy forces. The story is once again presented in a beautiful comic book panel style that adds a distinct flair to the narrative that transpires. But where Valkyrie Chronicles 3 really excels is gameplay. Each unit brings their own advantage to each engagement, from standard infantry to more heavy hitters like tanks, and throughout the campaign you'll be unlocking more as you progress, which can all be fully customized and decked out with many options that makes taking on each challenge all the more manageable. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos and to take part in giveaways. You can also join our growing community on Discord and meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd also like to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Rhino, Skill Jim, Nano, Steve and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining our Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find the links in the description. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.